Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you for tuning in. It's 5 o'clock now in China, and it's something else back in Europe, depending on where you're tuning in from. Today's session is the fifth session of the capacity building webinar series that we have been going on for the last couple of weeks. It's a partnership between the EU SME Centre, EUROCHambres, and also Spirit Slovenia. Today's session is specifically on digital marketing essentials for China. And today's session is also prepared in collaboration with the Slovenian-Chinese Business Council. So before we get too far into today's presentation, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Nina from the Slovenian-Chinese Business Council to say a few welcome remarks.
Thank you so much, Nikolai. So in the name of the Slovenian-Chinese Business Council, I would just want to greet you all at this seminar, which is organized, as mentioned, in cooperation between the EU SME Centre, EuroChambres, Spirit Slovenia, and as a guest organization, Slovenian-Chinese Business Council. We were founded just in 2020 during the COVID crisis, and due to basically this came out of the need to connect entrepreneurs, companies from the Slovenian and the Chinese market with the goal to strengthen the cooperation. We do business development activities. We inform members on the possibilities of cooperation, matchmaking, networking activities, educational activities such as this one, trainings on sales, marketing, sourcing from China, logistics, ensuring contracts, IP rights. You name it. We also try to connect as much as possible with the embassies from both sides. The Chinese embassy in Ljubljana and the Slovenian embassy in Beijing. And you are all very welcome to approach us or join any of our events. And enjoy the seminar. Back to you, Nikolai.
Thank you very much for the remarks and also the welcome to everyone, Nina. So today's session, of course, brought to you by the EU SME Centre in collaboration with Spirit Slovenia, EuroChambres, and also the Slovenian-Chinese Business Council. So we're very happy to collaborate with all of you on these sessions. Today, the fifth session is, as I said, focused on digital marketing essentials for China, and we would like to get very fast into it, but before we do that, we do have to present just a few remarks on the EU SME Centre. Some of you have heard it before, so I will try and keep it brief. But the EU SME Centre, who are we and what do we do? Well, the EU SME Centre is an EU Commission funded project that has been operating in some capacity since the year of 2010, so around 12 years ago. The purpose is to assist European small and medium-sized enterprises in getting ready to do business on the Chinese market. Right now, we are actually very much at the end of the third phase, as we're calling it, of the center that concludes here in March 2022. As I said, we seek to help EU SMEs prepare to do business in China by providing a range of different information, advice, training, and support services. And these ones I would like to just attach a quick remark on. One thing I should also mention, definitely not forget to mention, is that the EU SME Centre is implemented by 5 different implementing partners. It is led by the China-Italy Chamber of Commerce. It is also implemented by the China-Britain Business Council, the Danish Chamber of Commerce in China, which is where I am working when I'm not doing the EU SME projects, EuroChambres, and then finally also the European Union Chamber of Commerce. So those 5 business organizations. Now, very briefly about the different services that the EU SME Centre can offer. The first of 4 that I would like to highlight is that we operate as a knowledge center. That means that on our website, you can access many different reports on guidelines, case studies, or different sectors of doing business in China. These reports are all freely available to download on our website, so we highly encourage you to do so. Also, if you have any ideas for reports or sectors for us to cover in the future that we have not done yet, please let us know so we can be sure that the reports that we publish are always actually needed by the European SMEs. So that's the first part, the knowledge center. The second part that I would like to highlight is the advice center. And in the Advice Center, the EU SME, we have two things that I would like to share today. One thing is our self-diagnosis tool. The self-diagnosis tool is an online tool that can be accessed free of charge for companies who would like to take a test to see, am I ready to do business on the Chinese market, or are there maybe some aspects that I should look a little bit more into and get some more advice on? That you can figure out by trying to take this test that is free of charge, and then hopefully it can provide you some good suggestions to look into afterwards. Chances are that the things that you may need to look more into, that you can also find information on the EU SME website on that. But also in the Advice Center, another function that we always like to highlight is the Ask the Expert function, as we call it. It's a button on our website, the EU SME Center website, where you can click and then you can write a question just about anything about doing business in China, any sector, regulation changes, these kind of things. You can ask your question free of charge, and then we will get back to you in the span of a maximum 5 working days to answer your question. The third of the 4 pillars that I would like to mention is that we also operate as a training center, and that is very much what we are also here doing today. So under the training center, we are organizing some online workshops, some offline workshops, both in China and in Europe, but also very much often we do it hybrid, so both online and offline at the same time. We try to cover the topics that are requested by us, to us, I should say, and also that way be sure that our advice that we can share through our experts that we work with can have value for the European SMEs. An active topic that has been very discussed recently is the 2 sessions meeting that has just concluded in China. So we have a session coming up on that shortly as well. The fourth thing, the last thing that I would like to say here is that the EU SME Center also operates as an advocacy platform. And that means that the EU SME Center shares updates on issues that could affect regulatory landscapes for the small, medium-sized enterprises from Europe and China. We organize workshops and we organize a lot of meetings with both European stakeholders and also Chinese stakeholders in China and Europe. So that is the last thing for the advocacy platform. As I mentioned, we have more activities in the pipeline. We have one on the 2 sessions that's coming up here on the March 18th, but we do have a lot of other activities as well. So please check on our website to find activities that may be of interest to you. Today's session, of course, is the last session of the capacity building webinar series, but we do have other activities after today as well. Now, a little technical remark before we get into it is that we will also have a Q&A session after today's presentation has concluded. So if you watch today's session and you think of some questions that you would like to ask the speakers of today, please do so. We highly encourage that. And you can do it by using the Q&A function built into Zoom here. So we prefer that you use the Q&A function and not write the question in the chat so that we can easier keep an overview and be sure to get back to your questions to the speakers. So no questions are bad. We highly welcome all questions. The final thing that I would say for the technical part before we get into it is that we do these sessions for free, of course, but one thing that we do hope to get is some feedback on how we can improve in the future. So when today's session has concluded, you will receive a link on your email. Very brief feedback survey, should take no longer than 1 minute, maybe even 30 seconds, maybe faster if you're really fast. And we really hope to get some feedback on improving our sessions. Tell us what you like, tell us what you did not like so much, tell us how we can be sure that our services are the best that they can be. So with all of that technical house cleaning out of the way, why don't we move into today's session? As I said, it's a collaboration between the EU SME Center, EUSME, Spirit Slovenia, Slovenian-Chinese Business Council, and the topic Digital Marketing Essentials in China. Now, we have 2 speakers with us today, and I would like to invite the first speaker of today, that is Luis. So Luis, if you are ready, the floor is yours.
Ready. So thank you very much, Nikolai. Thank you also, Nina. Thank you, Domen, who is also there. Thank you, Sonia. Yeah, I will share the screen. I think now you can see. Hey, now you can see, no? Wait a moment, I'll go to the beginning.
Yes, we see it just
Okay.
perfectly. Thank you, Luis.
Okay. Well, so I'm very happy to be today with people from Slovenia. We know that we have an amazing cyclist in Slovenia, no? Tadej Pogacar. I don't know how you say it in Slovenian. Pogacar. And apart from that, I'm sure Slovenia has a lot of products to offer to our Chinese friends. I think I'm also very, very grateful for the European Union Small and Medium Enterprises Center in China to let us the opportunity to be together. I think it's doing a very good job to unite different voices of companies and professionals that are involved doing things in the Chinese market, and sometimes in the same topic, which I think enrich a lot. And we all Europeans can benefit a lot from this kind of best practice sharing. I hope today I can also give some views on this. No? I'm today together with Domen Jere. Domen, you can say hi if you want.
Yes, hi also from our side.
I think
be together with Luis.
Introduce or later. Domen, you are from Slovenia, no?
Yes, I'm from Slovenia. So
that's
everybody greetings from my side also.
So we'll be very complementary because you're from Slovenia. I'm myself from Spanish, but we're both interested in China. We're also complementary in Domen is specialized in Alipay, Chifubao, in this part of Alipay, and in tourism, okay? So we are complementary. So I hope we can maybe comment some of the things together. It will be more helpful, okay? Because about China, as we usually say, nobody knows anything, and the longer you are in China, the less you know about the country, no? I think sometimes this is usually the case. No? Also, by the way, now it's 5 in China, and my neighbor, because I'm confined today in the city of Weihai in Shandong province, which is in the eastern part of China, in the peninsula of Shandong, which is in front of the peninsula of Korea. This city is very near to Korea. And at this time, so in this city, we're confined now because of the virus. We are confined until we don't know when. And at this time, my neighbor usually start to play the piano, okay? So if you start hearing the piano, I don't know, it will be because of that, okay? So, yes, about myself, I've been in China for 12 years. I arrived with one scholarship to study my MBA at CIBS, the business school in Shanghai. And then I've been collaborating with the EU SME Center. And before coming to China, I was working in the media sector in a Spanish media group, which is called Prisa Group, which is the largest in the Spanish language. Before that, I was working in eBay as a category manager, what they call here Xiao'er in the Chinese. In Tmall, and this is the category manager. Apart from that, well, what I do is some music, clarinet. I studied in the conservatory, chabutuo, saxophone, high simba, and piano. Since that I'm studying by myself. Which I'm studying piano a lot, in fact, because I think piano is one of the things that is uniting a lot. I think China with the West somehow. This is still very aspirational, and I have a small daughter, and I'm studying piano to teach piano to my daughter. No? There you can find my email address and my WeChat work. Okay, so I work into Open, which is a company doing e-commerce and digital marketing in China. We have a team of 40 people based here in Shandong, Weihai. And we are also an European SME. And as many European SME, we are also a family business, okay, as a company, our company. And we work for many European family business, which is one of the characteristics that the European companies have. No? So I think normally in these kind of events, we usually talk about the best practice, okay? What's the best? What is the best that can be done? And we usually talk very much about what should be done, what we should do, no? I believe sometimes we as European SMEs, our volume is not too huge. Usually one challenge I see about the European small enterprises, that they are family owned, is that they are not very much playing with the capital, with the resources of other people. They are very much organic, very much playing with their own resources. And when you're playing that way, sometimes you have to work in what is workable for you, what is sustainable, okay? And in terms of this, sometimes maybe it would be nice to talk about lean China market entry, and minimum China viable market entry proposition. No? So sometimes we are very much based in these kind of environments, because if the project is unsustainable, sooner or later it might break. Okay. So right now, as I said, I'm confined in China. We are in a very difficult moment in this because we had some outbreak in China. I think yesterday was like 4,000 cases, local cases, mainly in the province, in the city of Jilin. It's in North China. So the country is very nervous. Okay. I don't know whether you hear that before they started to say that the cross-border, that the packages sent from abroad might have the virus. So what happened is that people got scared about the virus. Maybe the virus is coming in the package, maybe it's imported through the package. And what happened, because now it's domestic, the virus. So what we're having in the customer support services of the online shops is that people is asking, but can I receive the package? Or people are also making the packages to quarantine the package before they open it. And we have also issues with the delivery people, with the logistic people. So it's a complicated moment, and hopefully soon we will be back to normal. Okay. So today we will talk about the relevance of e-commerce and digital marketing in China, and also some fundamentals. Okay. So today we are thinking about any kind of audience, but mainly we are thinking about people who would like to have a first introduction on, okay, I am an SME, what shall I do in China? Okay. So going into the topic, what we find is that the GDP in China is growing fastest in the world, is one of the fastest. The last target that they put is 5.5%. It didn't have as much problem as other places during the COVID, fortunately for them. So it's still robust, but the growing pace is getting slower. Okay, the growing pace is getting slower. The drivers, why the GDP is growing in China. One driver is still urbanization. This is still one driver. Even though we do have the one challenge with urbanization with the real estate. Okay, you know that we had the issue with Evergrande and some other real estate companies that are having a big challenge, and they are having some credit crunch. This is true. This is happening. It's readjusting, and I think they are digesting it without too much problem. But it is still, urbanization is still a driver of growth for China. Apart from urbanization, another driver of growth is still exports. They were thinking about dual circulation, so it's like the goods being sold to the Chinese people, and they were thinking about consumption as a driver of growth. But truth being said, in their GDP equation, still exports is one of the keys. No, they didn't manage yet to change too much the equation. They wanted to change it. Also, one of the reasons is because they didn't want to get trapped in the middle income trap, that some other countries have been trapped in the middle income trap once they reach around $10,000 US. No, and consistently with that, we see that the retail growth is slower than the GDP growth. That means the GDP is growing faster than the retail. Okay, that means it's related with the consumption. Consumption is not growing as fast as the GDP. This might also be due because Chinese consumers are cautious. They want to save. They see maybe some uncertainty, and they are not so prone to spend. Sometimes it is in some cases, and in some other cases, they don't have so many disposable income to spend. No? And this is happening even though the tourism is stopped, which tourism was a part of the GDP going out of China. I don't know how much it was in impact of GDP, but maybe some points of GDP were going out of China through tourism. And this stopped going out. No? So because Domen, we don't have tourism now currently. Really, no tourism from Chinese people, no?
Yes, unfortunately, when the Corona crisis started, there is no tourist, only like some internal tourists who are living in Europe, but otherwise, directly tourists that would be coming from China, they're not coming due to the reason, because they are, especially at that time when Corona started, they were really afraid what will be going on in Europe. So, and now because of all the restrictions, they're not coming yet.
But you have Chinese that are in Europe. There are many people, there are many Chinese within Europe.
They are still I would say majority are business people and students. Now also students are coming more and more. Mostly they are located, I would say, in English-speaking countries and Germany and France. And also such kind of, I would say, Chinese who are studying here or doing business here are also still great consumers and also promoters of European products to the other Chinese who are living in China.
So you still have a volume of payments in Alipay and so on in Europe, no?
I would say mostly we can see them on the airport. For example, there were one example when for example, Chinese businessmen need to go back to China and need to make then a PCR test on the airport. And there we can see, for example, that there is some tractions and some transactions. But in general, in comparison, what was going on before the pandemics, it's, I would say, barely 1 to 2% of the transactions what were before.
But still through Alipay, you have some ways to get in touch with the Chinese living, sometimes there in Europe. You still have some tools. I think it will be nice later if you can introduce a little bit of that.
Okay, I can later on introduce how we can see them.
So yeah, retail is growing slower than GDP, but what we have is that the e-commerce is growing faster than retail. So the e-commerce expenditures in the mix of retail sales is very high, and it's comparatively very high compared with to other countries. Okay. So here we can see that as a percentage of the total retail sales, one forecast here, it could reach as much as 58% by 2024. And we can see also that the growth is getting slower, but still the growth is much faster than the one we have seen in general retail. No? General retail growing 4.9%, but still online is growing much faster than that. Okay. Here we can see the priorities of the Chinese government in terms of the 5-year plan. And after a success development of many years, they still keep ambitious, but now they start to think about the quality of life of people and about the quality of the development. So we can see how they want to keep, they say, indicators within appropriate range. Okay, now they don't want to maximize the growth, maybe appropriate. So they use a term which is a little bit more moderate. They want to research and develop because they want to produce more added value in what they do. They want to keep human unemployment rate within 5.5%. This is a challenge also for them to not to have too much human employment. And in fact, related with that, they would like the urban residents 65% of the population. So they have an urbanization. By the urbanization, they don't want it to be uncontrolled. That's the reason they keep the hukou system and some other measures to keep things in balance, which they think is okay, not too high unemployment in the cities and so on. Increase the life expectancy by 1 year. The life expectancy is already pretty high. Promote green development. Green, it's an important keyword in China, and I think we Europeans maybe can work on this value very much when communicating with Chinese consumers. And they would like to promote also the Belt and Road Initiative and so on. And basically, let us say, is building a peaceful China. Okay. So online growth comes now from later adopters. Okay. We are nearly in 1 billion people using the internet. 1 billion people, which is 70% of the Chinese population. Okay, so which is still the penetration is slower, is smaller than in other countries. Okay, but if you go to 60 years old or older, the penetration is only 42%. So the older people is going to be one of the growth collectives in the online. Okay. Also, what we see here, we see the same as before, so the same data, nearly 1 billion users. And then what we see here is also that 70% of them are active in mobile. If you compare to US, which is a Western market, you see that you have 93%, so more penetration of the internet, but 84% are active in the mobile, so it's very high activity rate, but it drops from the penetration of the internet. So it's still in US, you have people accessing to the internet through the computer, but not through the mobile phone. Something that doesn't really happen in China. In China, people access to the internet, access through the mobile phone, which is very good for Alipay, of course, and because it's very useful to use the mobile phone. And here you can see mobile payments, no? So 70% of the population access the internet, and 60% of the population use mobile payments, which means a very high percentage of the people who use the internet using mobile payments. But if you go to US, only 28% of the population are using mobile payments. It's much less, it's half. So the adoption of the mobile payments is much lower in our markets domain. I think maybe you have seen it. So that might be challenging because maybe I guess this might be challenging because maybe many places are not accepting mobile payments. No, it's difficult for them to accept. No,
you're talking about Europe.
Yes, in Europe also.
Yes,
because I guess in Europe it might be more similar to America. I guess in terms of this. No.
Yeah, that's the challenge because, like, for example, I can just say from my experience, like when you are expanding such kind of ways of payments to the merchants, they were first of all thinking, because before the pandemic, QR code was quite unfamiliar concept for the European merchants. And then, especially if there are some small companies and you want to introduce them, that there will come Chinese customer who will pay with the phone, and he will just scan a QR code. It's like science fiction. They were thinking like how this can eventually happen, that somebody will just scan QR code and will I get the money or not? So they were quite cautious about this kind of technology because it's so unfamiliar before the pandemics in comparison to China, which I would say even like people who are 80 plus years old, they are quite familiar with such kind of payment.
So after the pandemic and after everything is better, you will have a very good opportunity to implement Alipay in many merchants. That's going to be a very good moment for you. Good. So what we have is the giant companies. The giant companies are shaping the internet in China, and they have a different ecosystem than what we have in the West. No. So this is what we are finding. No. So they are different companies there that are very big players, and they become kind of also monopolies, and the Chinese government also make antitrust action sometimes and even affect their valuation. Okay, so the Chinese government is trying to create some competition internally. It's very active creating competition, and in fact we can see in many areas that it's very competitive and have new players all the time, which is very good for, I think for the small players is very good, this healthy competition, internally competitive market. No? For example, one thing the Chinese government did is that it's ruled that the platforms cannot block each other. The ecosystems cannot block each other. So you can link from WeChat to your Tmall shop, which before you couldn't. Now, currently, you can, no? But before we were blocked, no? And before the ecosystems were more separated, now the ecosystems are more close together. And I think this also might have impact, perhaps, Alipay, no? Because before everything was blocked, and now, for example, everything is more connected, no? For example, now we have a company, we are developing the WeChat store, and we are connect the WeChat mini program with an Alipay mini program, no? So I think now you have more opportunities also in that regard, in that area. More connections. So the ecosystem is rich and is different, and basically you have everything that we have in the West, but let's say in China. And sometimes we have some tools from China in the West, like for example, TikTok is an example of that, but it doesn't happen too often, I think, this, no? More or less the ecosystems are a little bit separated, and all the functionalities are covered, as you can imagine, and there are many different companies. And maybe we have even more functionalities than we have in the West. Okay, so it's amazing how China managed to develop their own ecosystem. No? In Europe, I think we decided to be part of the American ecosystem also, in a way. So we are part of the West in this regard, okay? But focusing in what can be more relevant for European SMEs in terms of digital marketing and e-commerce, I will talk about this, and also I think Domen later can talk about Alipay, which I think is also very important in a way, although Alipay is part of the Alibaba ecosystem. No? So if we are European SMEs, let's say defining what do we understand by an SME? For me, an SME would be a company that has, I don't know, revenue. Sometimes it can be much larger because it depends on how you define it, but revenue up to a couple of 100 million euros, maybe even more. For me, a family business, even if huge, could be considered an SME, even it has 1 billion euros in terms of revenue. And normally, the European SMEs, they like to manage their assets. They have a lot of relationship with the assets because the ownership used to control the company. And normally, the European SME, to my experience, is not too much into playing financially very aggressively. Like I'm going to finance the project with the resources of somebody else, and so I can make a much more ambitious project, and so I can be more playing in what should be done. No? So maybe it's playing with the organic resources, which means that the companies want to be organically growing, organically in a very solid way. The advantage is that it's very solid. The disadvantage is that sometimes it's not aggressive, it's not enough, and it's not fast enough for what should be the Chinese market. Okay. But in terms of this, I totally agree and understand and sympathize with the European company owners that say, yes, but eventually I'm going to need more revenue than cost, more cash in than cash out. We have to be there. So the key, let's say, e-commerce platforms will be Taobao, Tmall, WeChat, Jingdong, and Xiaohongshu, and we will talk about each of them. And you have Pinduoduo and Douyin, TikTok. These are two other platforms that are gaining market share, but I would personally consider them less relevant from the standpoint of a European SME, because normally, as a European SME, we're going to need to be a little bit premium, even if we just take it into account for the cost of the logistics and so on. So we're going to need to be premium. Others we could consider will be Seco, which currently has some financial challenges, truth being said, and this is we know for sure they are delaying payments to the merchants. So if you're considering entering Seco has a very good sellout to Chinese consumer, but you have to be very careful because, to be honest, they are a little bit late paying, although hopefully maybe they will come out good. And to be honest, consumers like to buy in Seco. No? And another will be the VIP.com, no? Another maybe platform to be considered from our experience. I don't know if you will mention Domain, any other e-commerce platform, or but I think more or less these are kind of the key. So going a little bit one by one, Taobao. I'm sure you all know Taobao is a C2C marketplace. So what happens with Taobao is that Taobao is super fun and it's a rich marketplace, which surprisingly has been left alone. Nobody else is a C2C marketplace, no? So this gives a huge opportunity to Alibaba Group because nobody else is really doing this in a massive way, no? So to be honest, Taobao is full of unauthorized products. What I mean by unauthorized products is sometimes it's a product imported from Canada and it's legally been sold in Canada and it appears in Taobao, no? Or sometimes browse with doubtful copyright. So we have these kind of things in Taobao. No? So Taobao is a very adventurous place. To be honest, Taobao is a very fun place for the Chinese people and for every consumer. It's a very fun place because you can find anything. I have bought, for example, European car plates in Taobao. And it's nice because I put them in my office to decorate and this, but how can car plates from Europe end up sold in Taobao? No? And very funny things. So Taobao is very funny and it's a huge traffic engine because Taobao is great as a content. It's an entertainment to enter into Taobao and to see things. No? So it's great. It's an entertainment. So normally clients are searching for bargains and low prices, but not only. You can also find products of clients that even in premium goods because sometimes you can find out about things that you cannot find other places. Okay. So Taobao contributes to the system of Chinese e-commerce that is very flexible, and otherwise the system is very rigid. It's becoming very rigid with rules, because if you want to regulate and if you want to have this kind of unauthorized products, sometimes, to be honest, even fakes and this, then you have to go rigid. And when you go rigid, it's more rigid, but it's more boring somehow. But sometimes Taobao is still a relevant e-commerce platform. Huh? Sometimes can be a relevant e-commerce platform. It's true, some people say, no, but it's going to be bad for my brand, or it's going to look bad. It depends. It depends. Huh? For example, it can be for informal product introductions. It can be good for, say, Daigos. Daigos are these students that maybe Domen was mentioned before, mainly when they travel to China. They can bring some products. Or sometimes they're doing it by posting products, by shipping products to their families. So Daigo activity is still alive, it's still working. It can be good, Taobao, as a complement to other channels and strategies. So for example, maybe some products, or maybe for some testing, or maybe when I'm doing some other products, or for example, when we have an official store in Tmall or something like this, then we have many Taobao stores also covering, because they have other product portfolio, and they have other ways to cross traffic among products, so it can be interesting. It can be good to test models when things are not 100% decided. So maybe, okay, testing in Taobao, although it has some brand risk, of course, so it doesn't apply to anybody. And it can be also interesting to try Taobao when the bureaucracy might be a stopper of other channels. It can be. So is Taobao good or a bad platform? It depends. It depends. And sometimes it might be worth paying an eye. So let's not close ourselves to just thinking about one. It has to be this platform and not any other. Tmall. Okay, Tmall.com. Tmall, it's B2C in most cases, but in basically every case. So the key characteristics is that end clients can rest assured the products are real, official, and authorized. Therefore, conversion rates, of course, are much higher, and average order values are normally much higher. What makes that the traffic in Tmall is normally much more valuable, much more worth than the traffic in Taobao. Okay, and when people go to Tmall, they go with an intention to buy much more than in Taobao, much more decided and determined to buy. Okay, consumers in Tmall, they are not so much seeking for adventures like in Taobao and this, but reliability. No, in Taobao, consumers might even risk. Okay, let's try this, let's try that. I assume the risk, and yeah, okay, I even might get disappointed, but I will more assume. No? So it's relevant in what scenarios, Tmall? It's relevant when we want to, for example, organize and show what is the official product and what is the official price. For example, we want to make marketing leadership. We want to say, look, this is the official brand of this product, of these glasses, and this is the price it should be sold. Okay, we want to make a statement, okay, of this brand. This is the brand, this is official, this is very fixed, because Chinese will trust it a lot. Okay, so normally the flagship store in Tmall, it's the key reference in China. Okay, so as a flag position, and when we have a number of SKUs, sometimes we have shops with very little SKUs, but a shop with very little SKU as a marketing channel, okay, it might be good, but to be honest, very often a shop with very few SKUs, it wouldn't work. So we need to have some SKUs, and it's relevant when branding is important. The Tmall shop. Sometimes the Tmall shop, what we are seeing is that the Tmall shop is managed even by the brand for companies that have a distributor in China. Because sometimes the doubt is whether this is a marketing place or this is a sales place. Okay, it depends on how we manage it. Yeah? So it doesn't necessarily have to be the distributor who manages the Tmall flagship store. Sometimes it's managed by the brand, and sometimes it's managed by the brand with a premium price on the prices that the distributor might have in other channels or offline or in Taobao and so on. Okay, so it's compatible. It's compatible and it works. What we have seen is that selling in a flagship store in Tmall, 15% more or less, 15 to 20% more expensive than some other people in Taobao, and it's more or less sustainable. Okay, we have tested it and we have cases in which we are working in that way with more distributors and so on. But in that case, then Tmall is closer to a marketplace. Okay. So that's the reason that sometimes you cannot really judge the sales of one brand in China by the sales in the Tmall flagship store. Okay, this can be sometimes misleading. Not only because within Tmall you also have one tool for affiliate marketing, which is called Taobao that we can sell in shops of other people, but also because sometimes the place in the strategy of the Tmall flagship store is not really a transactional place where I'm gonna be making the sales. Okay. JD.com, okay? JD is by itself is the largest retailer, and some people say, what do you mean by retailer? Because it means that JD in the value chain sometimes is more buying and selling, more doing trading, okay? It's similar to Tmall in reliability, if not even better. The volume is much lower. It was rooted in electronics, so it gives him more male consumers still. And it made from the logistics a key value proposition. So people who want reliability and this, they say, okay, I'm going to JD.com. Okay, it's relevant in some product categories that we may find supply-demand opportunities with less saturated and competitive scenarios. What do we mean by this? What do we mean by this? Is bigger Tmall? For sure, it is bigger Tmall in general. Okay, but when we see bigger, we have to see both sides of the coin: the side of the demand and the side of supply. So sometimes we're going to see balances between demand and supply that might be better in JD than in Tmall. So maybe we're going to have less volume, but with a higher return on investment. So it can be a good channel in many occasions, and sometimes it's a complement. Normally, it's taken as the second channel. Once I am in Tmall and I'm selling, then I go to JD. But this is not necessarily has to be that way. Okay. Sometimes also can happen that the rules are more flexible, but sometimes can pass the opposite. I tell you, for example, normally when you sell in Tmall or when you sell in JD, it's mainly if it's cross-border selling from out of China, it's getting more and more compulsory to work at this in the last mile of the delivery with the logistics of JD Logistics or China, the logistics of the platform, okay? And sometimes they are not having exactly the same rules. Why? Because they're working with different free trade zones, or they're assigning you to different free trade zones. And sometimes with some products, you might have different rules and different entry barriers or different requirements depending on you are in Tmall, depending if you are in JD, even depending on you are in which free trade zone, okay? So if you have a product that, for example, is qualified as dangerous product in one on China or JD Logistics, maybe it's not qualified as dangerous in the other. So trying to open doors to testing the different platforms sometimes can be a way, you know? Or sometimes the barrier can be the person or the people or the team managing the logistics or something. It's putting, let's say, problems or barriers to a product that somebody else is not putting in another petition or in another logistic company. That's the reason also why we are using as a complement sometimes JD and Tmall to finally try to find a way. No? And also one thing it's possible to do is to move the goods from China to JD Logistics. It's possible, but it's not too easy, and combine them, okay? So in order to try to find the shortest way to the market, sometimes it's good to use both platforms and not to be tied only to one, okay? And that's also is relevant when we just want to widen the reach, because the clients are overlapping, some of them, but not all of them. Huh? Many people is really more or less loyal to one platform, and they keep buying there, and sometimes even because of convenience, because they are just used, and so on. And then WeChat. WeChat is the closest to our website. So we Europeans used to like this a lot. We used to love this a lot, because our website is as our home. It's where we more put the rules. And we Europeans love this. No, they come to my shop, come to my place, okay? So it's a private traffic focus with a much more intimate relationship with our client, okay? To be honest, before was very badly affected by the ecosystems side, but now because the ecosystem's open, it's probably perhaps a good moment for WeChat again. It allows us to own more our clients and database more than the other platforms. When you are working in JD or in Tmall, the problem we're going to have is that the database use is going to be much more restricted, much more restricted than in WeChat. In WeChat, of course, is also subject to restrictions. And if you have a mini program, the privacy policy is going to be the privacy policy, basically, of the mini program software or of Tencent WeChat. No? So, and it's also rigid, and we cannot do whatever we want, no? But it's much more flexible. Okay. So it allows us to make a higher degree of asset building for our company. And it can be much less costly and much faster to set up, even from the bureaucratic perspective and this, but also because we have more responsibilities. Okay. It's relevant, for example, when we don't have specific client pools that are well identified. And for example, in specific WeChat groups, let's say I want to sell equipment for triathlon, no? People who is doing the triathlon, no? the competition of the one specific sport competition. These people maybe are very much communicating in certain WeChat groups, in certain forums, so I can go very targeted and I can tell, hey, there is a WeChat store where you can get the best European clothes for that. If it's very specific, the target, it might be interesting. And then a very micro focus list. Also, when the people is in a physical locations, in a physical place, and something like this, and you can work in the offline to online lead generation. Somehow I can get them offline, and I can tell them, hey, if you come here, you can buy my WeChat store, and can be a good idea. Or when we have a large and can be increasing WeChat follower base, then it can be very interesting. And to focus in loyalty and in repeat sales. So to be honest, we are working now increasingly in WeChat stores, and we have a lot of companies, clients, interest, and brands in WeChat stores. Why? Because, yes, what we said about JD and Tmall. JD and Tmall are great for acquisition, client acquisition. So I'm going to go there, I'm going to get clients, because many people with the intention to buy is going to come to JD and Tmall and is going to search for keywords looking for products or brands. Okay, they're coming to find it in JD and Tmall. But the problem is that if I'm always there, I'm always going to be depending on the client acquisition. And if I'm depending on the client acquisition, my cost of traffic is going to be huge always all the time. No? So whoever has the opportunity to try to move into WeChat and try to have a more intimate relationship, is doing that. And we are working more and more in these kind of projects, even like a VIP, more like a VIP oriented VIP program, and try to reward our clients rather than the platform. So they come again and buy again. No? So it's interesting WeChat also as a sales channel. All e-commerce platforms in China work similar, with similar logic and similar process. Okay, so they have similar or even the same promotion periods all over the time. A bit different brand authorization rules, but basically the same. There's a bureaucracy which we have to pass. The same chat-based customer support approach, similar storefronts, in fact, and customer experiences. Same cross-border and domestic schemes, and similar or same logistic solutions, and similar back office of the shop. Okay, so the standards are framed by common practices and by government rules. So there have been a common practice and government rules, and finally everything is end up to be more or less standardized. So to be honest, normally who is able to manage a platform is able to manage another one, although if the team can be specialized in one platform, it's also to be a little bit better. But it's pretty standardized. Performing and independent, not biased research before moving is a must, okay? And here I know that, oh, this is obvious, don't tell me this. Of course, everybody knows. Yes, I know that everybody knows, but sometimes we are not doing that, and we are getting lazy in that. And I really discourage you to do, for example, go to the e-commerce platform to recommend me what to do and with whom, find a TP. This is, for me, a very basic mistake. Do not follow, let's say, a very much interested advice, which can be the e-commerce platform, please, okay? And not even the e-commerce platform, the person in the e-commerce platform. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Many data is public. You have students there still, as Domen just told us. You have people, you can see many things public, many information, you can just go to the websites and check by yourself, okay? So you can research, even you don't want to hire anybody. You can research, that's easy. and you can reach the conclusions before asking anyone. Okay, and do not assume that you must enter China before seeing this in a very cold-minded way. Okay, so do a diagnosis and a business plan. Basic, at least, is the diagnosis is what is the status of the brand or my products in China. Okay, what the checklist, what should I be doing? Benchmarks. So who is selling similar things to me in the similar price point, and how much are they selling? You can see this. You can see this. And this is going to make you very realistic about what is the real opportunity, what is the market size of what I'm going to sell in China. Okay. If you see what your benchmarks are selling in China, you are going to identify that this sometimes might sound contradictory with the messages that the platforms can promise to us. Okay, because of course the platforms they would like to create a lot of supply in the platform to make the supply competition, to have competition in the supply, and to make sure they can earn as much as possible. As I told you at the beginning, before going to China, I was working in eBay, the marketplace. Okay, I'm a very old person already. I was working in eBay in the year of 2003, more or less. So when I was working in eBay nearly 20 years ago, we were already doing the seller economics. We were calculating more or less with the P&L of the seller to know how much we could raise the bar of the cost of sales. So of course they are doing that. So e-commerce platforms, they want to maximize mainly their business. They want to, of course, they don't need to kill the merchants, but the merchants are a means to their goals. Okay, not the goal. Okay, so we can measure the market. We can check in e-commerce what are they doing, these brands. We can check our competitors, our benchmarks in social media. If none of our competitors, none of our benchmarks, nobody very similar to us more or less is doing anything in China, that might mean something. We can check in search engines how they appear in video, in each players, and then we can find our recommendations. This is something that anybody can do by himself, honestly. With even with a translator, with the Chrome translator and the translation tools, and it's possible to go to all the places and check my keywords, my brands, some other people, and find some information. It's not, maybe it's not too easy, but it's feasible to do. And the business plan, which is basically all the cost, all the at least, if not the forecast, because the forecast I think sometimes is very often a fantasy. At least what we can do is from once I see my benchmarks, how much they are selling and what they are doing, at least I can know what is the break-even point. I'm not so talking about forecast, but I'm talking about break-even point, because once I know the break-even point, I will know, oh, this volume looks like feasible, or this volume looks like no way I'm gonna do it. And of course, the break-even point, you have to put a deadline. Okay, I'm gonna make break-even in after 2 years, after 3 years, after 4 years. And this is another point. Think mid-term. Okay, break-even in 1 year in China in an e-commerce project right now is nearly impossible. The break-even in China is going to be an effort of 2 to 3 years easily. Okay, if not 4. So we have to think mid and long term. That's the reason we have to spread the resources and we have to keep the effort on the time. Okay, so we cannot be very like in a punch, arrive and use all the resources. We're going to have to keep the effort on the time. Okay, so don't think too short term. Don't change the team too much. Okay, and don't overrate the role, neither of the distributor, nor of the TP, nor any role. I have to think about the role of every team. There is no TP, no distributor that can do miracles, honestly. And I think a very typical mistake that I'm seeing recently, even more and more, is that, okay, I'm going to change the TP because it doesn't work. I think people in Europe, we see too much football. We see too much football. Yeah, Domen, go ahead.
Yeah, no, maybe just you can explain TP for others. Maybe.
Yeah.
You
I will, as it's coming later, is the trading partner. It's, normally the company that is managing the platform, no? Yeah. So yeah, I'm jumping into this, but I'm talking also about common mistakes that I see. No, changing the TPs. I think I'm going to fire this guy because they don't sell. Even the TP or whoever or the marketing agency, even it might have been done some mistakes. After the mistakes, usually if it's a normal, legit, and a normal company, it's going to be more valuable than before because he has already made this mistake. For example, I don't know, like we use the wrong keywords or we use something like that. Okay. So we have to consider that the distributor or the agency or whoever is your own team. So we have to consider as our own team. No? So selling in China is much more labor intensive and therefore much more costly than in Europe. Selling online, okay? Selling online in China is much more labor intensive, okay? One reason is because consumers are being guided through a calendar of festivals, continuous calendar of festivals, okay? And they expect at least to see and to check that brands are alive. And they don't like that this brand looks like this brand is dead. It's not doing anything. We are now in 11/11 and this brand, look at the homepage it has and look at the product page and they don't have no promotion. They have no creativity. They did nothing. And the people will think, is this brand alive? They are still in business? They will ask you this kind of things. That's the problem. So once we have the commitment, once we have a shop, we have to be at least updating the image and making sure that people know, hey, here we are alive. So this generates a stress to ensure all our channels are updated and in line with current and future promotions. This requires continuous planning and adaptation, and it makes static shop management impossible. And when you see, for example, the Amazon shops, sometimes they are very static. Nothing happened, and nobody thinks so much, oh, but maybe these people are out of business, okay? So this is one of the reasons why, normally, selling in China is much more expensive than listing in Amazon in Europe. And sometimes people don't understand. They say, why is it so expensive to have a team for China and this? Well, it's expensive because of this, because it's very seasonal. You have to be up to date. And it's also expensive because it's very intensive in customer support. At least 20 to 30% of the orders will go through customer support. So pre-sales customer support is going to be super intensive. It's going to be very demanding in designs. The rate of returns and refunds is very big because the Chinese customers have been very much taking care of the platforms. And in fact, we have much more manual operations with less integrations due to the legacy of what I was telling you before. Before, the ecosystems were blocking each other. So you were not able to integrate. Like, okay, I'm going to integrate Shopify with this. So I'm going to click, and with 3 clicks, I'm going to link one platform with the other. These things in Europe and in the West are much more normal, but in China these things are still not so normal, even though now the government say, oh, guys, you must interoperate. So the calendar will always be a key management element for both e-commerce and for content and social media, and we will have things happening all the time. No? We have to prepare promotions in advance. Ideally, in an ideal world, 6 months in advance, mainly big promotions. So we have to start preparing and we have to start planning. So it requires a lot of pre-planning, okay? And even sometimes in some big operations, some teams that are just taking care of preparing the promotions at the beginning, much more before pre-launch, no? And some other teams also, okay, launch. So it's very demanding and we need to be really be up to date. The type of stores that we have in the marketplaces normally are these kind of stores, okay? The flagship store. It means that the brand go and say, okay, this is the official store of the brand, okay? It's normally the brand, but it can be a distributor, okay? It can be a distributor. Then one type of store that you have in Tmall, but in other portals you have something similar, it can be the exclusive store. It can be opened by an authorized company, but it doesn't need to be exclusive. I mean, it doesn't need to be exclusive distributor, but it's specialized. For example, exclusive store that is exclusively selling the items of one brand, okay? And in fact, you can see some people thinking, no, I have one Tmall store. No, it depends. I have seen some brands with up to 6 Tmall stores, okay? For example, differentiated by product range. No? I saw one sports brand called Kelme. If you look for it, Kelme is the one I'm telling you. The last time I checked, it had 6 Tmall stores called Kelme. One was for football, one was for casual, one was for, I don't know, other sports. So different, sometimes a little bit different customer segmentation, but you can have more than one store in Tmall. That's another thing. Another thing is how to make them compatible. Huh? That's another challenge. A specialized store, it's a multi-brand store within one category that can have different brands, but is focused by category, or marketplace store. Okay, these are readily authorized nowadays, and maybe they are run by the marketplaces themselves. Okay, so these are normally the type of stores that we have. And here we go with the TPs. The TPs are normally running the stores, are trade partners. Normally, it's the company who is helping to manage a shop. Our company is a trading partner, as there are many others. They are trade partners, okay? And these people, basically, they are professional service company with operations in China that provides merchants with e-commerce services, hopefully high quality. They do contents, operations, analysis, and the marketing. Okay, this is a typical role. It's the team, basically. It's the team, and they are specialized in managing these kind of operations in e-commerce platforms. So we need to try to work with the team, I think, very closely. It's our team, and mid and long term, if possible. The usually work scope is to make an operation plan proposal. Sometimes the e-commerce platforms are asking for it. Sometimes they are not really asking for it, but it's normally to have at least one is how we're going to operate, what are the frequently asked questions we will have in customer service, or how we're going to do the secondary packaging, how is going to be the unboxing experience of the Chinese consumers, so on. Then the entry service, the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic workload, to be honest, is huge. It's huge. Sometimes we think private sector is easier than public sector in bureaucracy, but I can tell you that the bureaucracy it's amazing, it can be huge. Sometimes the TP can do photography, photo shooting of pictures and videos. Sometimes, if not, they will outsource to somebody else. The store decoration, so the translation, the product page designs, the optimization of keywords and the keyword strategy. So to define, okay, these are the keywords that are important for my audience, and this is the way we're going to try to optimize and be seen. The daily store operations, so the product management, the campaign planning and execution. The marketing and promotion, that means network promotion and regular customer marketing, so it's to operate all the marketing visibility. Of course, customer service. Customer service is key, it's absolutely key. In my opinion, is one of the most important things. Truth being said, here many trading partners will tend to outsource and kind of consider is less important. In fact, in our company, we have brought customer support 100% in-house, and we are doing it by ourselves with people who have full-time network role, and we put it at the core of what we do. And normally, when we have a customer service operations, we will have a Dean Talk group or WeChat group or a WeChat work group with our customer himself. And customer support service is absolutely important. It's of extreme importance to the success of a project, because if not, what we said, we are acquiring clients all the time, is very unsustainable. And change the conversion rate in the pre-sales customer service can change a lot. The economics and the profitability of a shop. Data reporting, it's operation report and analysis. Reporting, yes, is very important. It's very, very important. But reporting to some extent is more or less commoditized somehow a little bit, and also now there are some tendencies to automate, for example, reporting, and this is a reporting. Normally, the e-commerce platforms, they have tools in the platform itself and applications that you can buy in the Timo back office or into JD back office. That is very good, and it can be bought at a very affordable price. So the first thing will be, in terms of data, to manage very well the data and to manage very well the tools that have the platforms themselves, okay? So maybe some companies, very few companies and super top companies, they have not enough with the tools of the e-commerce platform. It's very rare to find these kind of scenarios. Normally the problems are much more basic than that. The problems are much more basic and easy to see and easy to solve, okay? So about reporting and operations, normally the small and medium enterprise of Europe, we usually find very basic issues. So normally this is not a bottleneck to the business. And the brand marketing, of course, we know that if we cannot sell at a premium, we cannot survive. And to sell at a premium, we will need to have some brand marketing and positioning. And help with the logistics and warehousing. Okay, courier service system support, okay, which is basically a commodity because it's provided by the platforms, no? So for us, the users, and the merchants is not really a place where we can add a lot of value. Another important question is cross-border or e-commerce or domestic e-commerce. Okay, so normally cross-border means that a foreign entity is selling cross-border to a Chinese consumer, and the Chinese consumer is the importer of the goods directly. So there is not importer; the importer is directly the Chinese consumer. Okay, you can have the warehouse overseas, or you can see the warehouse in a bonded area, typically. And normally, you will pay. You will do the custom clearance. The cross-border e-commerce can be done only in a positive list. Okay, whatever is not included in the positive list cannot be done in cross-border e-commerce. And the products go to the bonded area without paying any tax. And the tax is paid by the Chinese consumer, and the e-commerce platform will collect the tax money and will pay directly to the government. Okay, so it will be compliant. And then it will be delivered the goods to the consumers. The consumers have a limit of how much they can purchase per order and per year. Okay, so cross-border e-commerce, yes, it is true. Sometimes it's a great solution, but I have to say also that the rules in cross-border e-commerce and the regulations have been growing to the extent that sometimes we're working with some brands. They say, okay, what's the point of selling cross-border? You have to paste a tag in Chinese to my product. Because sometimes, to be honest, even in the bonded areas, they don't even know themselves too much what are the rules, I have to say. And then the domestic e-commerce. You import the products first through, let's say, regular trade, and then you have a Chinese entity which is selling to Chinese consumers. So these are the two basic modes to sell. Which one is better? Which one is worse? It depends. It depends. Sometimes can be one, sometimes can be another. It's difficult to know. Normally, in cross-border, we have, for example, food supplements, even cosmetics, or some product categories, mainly these, and some others that can be very good, can work very good. But cross-border has some issues. For example, the returns and the refunds basically happen locally, and it's difficult to get them out. It's possible, but it's difficult. So it has advantages and disadvantages. But it is true that also Chinese consumers are giving a premium to cross-border still. So sometimes it's a good opportunity for cross-border. And we have experiences. We have right now one brand. We work both in cross-border and in domestic, and we sell more in cross-border than in domestic. Because it depends on where you're selling. And yes, in this case, we're selling sunglasses in cross-border and domestic for the same brand. So the steps to open a store normally is assessment and preparation. So we have to prepare the brand and prepare the documents, prepare everything. Apply to open the store. Okay, so we have to register, and we have to register the products in the platform. So we have a lot of bureaucracy, to be honest, with a lot of support. Then once it's approved, then is to develop the store. Okay, to develop the store and then to start running the store. This process, then typical question, how long does it take? How long does it take? Normally, a good timing is 2 to 4 months. 2 to 4 months. We have a bottleneck, which is the shipment of the products, if they go by sea. And now this bottleneck has become much larger sometimes. But to be honest, I think you have to be very patient. You have to be very patient, and also sometimes it depends on the brand. We don't have this document, now we need the passport of the CEO, the CEO is not here, now we need this document signed by this guy, now we need to demonstrate who are the shareholders of the company. And then is when it comes, oh, it's a lot of work, I didn't sell anything yet, and we're still here registering to open the shop, okay? So this is a hidden cost, the bureaucracy. So be careful with the bureaucracy, because sometimes it can be a lot, can be a lot of cost. In the shop, we will need to have a product portfolio. Normally, looks something like that. So they always, our friends from the Chinese e-commerce platforms, they will always insist, hey, you have to have hero products. Well, I want every of my product to be a hero, but no, they say no, some products has to be qualified, and this and has to, I think it makes sense, and they say because it's a way to also, it will link your brand image to some kind of products, okay? So we need to manage the products with different roles in my portfolio. It is very important to fix a pricing scheme, okay? A very clear pricing scheme with a tag price and then some promotion price. Why? know how to manage and not be all the time asking, can we launch a promotion with 10% or can we launch a promotion buy one get one free? Can we buy a promotion? No. Set very clear of the rules of the game and move on. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. Chinese people, even Chinese employees, Chinese companies, they are very entrepreneurial. They want to manage the business like if it was their own business. If you don't give them autonomy to Chinese people because they like to manage that way, they want to feel they are very entrepreneurial. They're going to break the motivation of our Chinese friends by a lot. So don't do that. Don't do that. Put rules and let them go. Okay. Then there is a lot of design work to do, as we said before. So product pages are absolutely crucial. Product pages will have a lot of information, so we need to work. This is a very, 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 very hard work, honestly. We cannot leave the Chinese distributor, TP, or whoever to do it by themselves. Okay, we have to teamwork with them. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for them to do this. Really. So a project in China will require resources from the brand, of course. Okay. So in terms of if we list an e-commerce platform, what's going to happen normally is that nobody is going to buy from us. Nobody. Why? Because nobody knows us. So to be honest, unfortunately, it's not enough. Fortunately, that is not enough. And in fact, maybe that is not even the most important thing to list the product, because we have to make our brand known and visible. The usual way now to make a brand known and visible is by making the brand visible in social media, which does not mean opening social media channels, which means to make the brand visible in social media channels. Okay, so let's differentiate. The same that selling online in China does not mean opening online shops by yourself. It means try to make my product available in those e-commerce platforms, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I need to open a store. No, my friend. Maybe we can find somebody who has a store and who has the same product and who has the same traffic. And maybe what we can do before we open a store is to call this guy. Hey, my friend, can you put my products, can you list my products in your store? And the same we can do with the social media channels. Maybe there is one person who is talking about triathlon and he's very good at this. Maybe we can first tell this guy talk about my brand, even before I open anything, okay? So when you think about working in China, and much more if you're an SME, don't assume that working in China is I'm going to open my own shop. I'm going to open my own social media store. No, because when I open, I have a commitment. It has to be alive. It has to be well managed. It has to be well attended, okay? So be very cautious before taking these kind of decisions, because then we are creating commitments for ourselves later. So we have WeChat, as you know, it's like the Chinese WhatsApp, a multi-purpose messaging social media app, mobile payment. We have Weibo, it's a micro-blogging. The difference is WeChat is more kind of close, needs mutual relationships, mutual contacts. Weibo, it's more like open, and it can index in search engine and this, so it's different. It's work better for acquisition. Xiaohongshu, it's more like Instagram, more image-based, and it's a little more female-oriented, they say, and for luxury, but it has worked very well for user acquisition in the last months. To be honest, it's been very, 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 very good until December, and then they had some rules change, and it's not as good. But Xiaohongshu has been last year an amazing place to acquire new followers and users and good engagement. Has been amazing, but now it's not as good. And then we have Douyin and Kuaishou video. Okay, problem with Douyin and Kuaishou video is the format. That the format is video, and video making, it's a format that requires more talent, more creativity, which sometimes is more investment. So sometimes I think for a European SME, it's going to be a little bit less relevant in theory, yeah? But of course every case is different. Domen.
Yeah, Luis, if I add you, because you mentioned before how they can search for the products or make product research, so they can also check, for example, in Weibo or Xiaohongshu, if, for example, some of the Chinese are already using their products, or, for example, because you mentioned Xiaohongshu, for example, there is many women who use, for example, for cosmetic products. In case now there is a company who wants to sell cosmetics, they can check, for example, in Xiaohongshu, if this product is maybe already described in the application.
Yes, exactly. That's totally right, and this is something easy that any export manager can do. and can go there to see who's talking about these kind of things. Not even knowing Chinese with a translator and this, and you will see, and it's fun to see, and you will learn a lot, and you will enjoy it. And because normally if you have a company and I don't know, you sell chocolates, you love chocolates, and so you like to go and discover what Chinese are talking about chocolate high end in this format and this. Yeah, you're totally right. It's good to go there and see what they are doing, no? Because very often in China, I think sometimes we assume that Chinese don't have a chocolate as good as the one we have here. Wait, go and see, because difficult to find something that is not in China sometimes, no? And also we have contents within the e-commerce channels. So in the e-commerce channels, they have also now timelines with contents, and we have to manage them like if they were other content marketing places, no? So that's also challenging because we have a lot of content in the platforms. Basically, the platforms, they want we to work for them. That's what the platforms want in general. And when we talk about contents specifically, they want we to create contents for them. And we're working for the platform, working for the platform, no? So that's a challenge. And the more we work for the platform, normally the more they will reward us. How they will reward us? For example, with the algorithm of the search engine optimization, because they will say, for example, hey, the people who is making more hours of streaming, we're going to give more audience, more visibility. So they are rewarding whoever is making more streaming. In fact, we have seen this. When you do, for example, live streaming, which is, later we will talk about that, the platform is giving you extra traffic. And also later we're going to be showing you more. So you will have extra traffic. Why? Because you did live streaming. What's happening is that the e-commerce platform is rewarding you this behavior. So it's like, I'm going to reward people who's making now live streaming. Now I'm going to reward the people who's doing comments. Now I'm going to reward the people who is cleaning whatever in the platform. To be honest, they have ways to do that, and they have ways even to do kind of campaigns to shape the e-commerce platform in the way they would like it to be. No? So very nice, interesting, and recommended to have is a social media brand manual for China. Okay, it's a document that describes this is who am I, these are my characteristics, this is the clients and the targets I would like to talk with, these are the topics I would like to talk about, these are the keywords that I would like to talk with. Because finally, when you are working in China, we will end up delegating in somebody the job of communication. We will end up delegating in somebody. So try to take the time to at least describe this, even if it's just one slide. Very clear and very agreed, and that this is marking the benchmark. Okay, this is the way we should be working. Okay, it doesn't need to be complicated, but please have one document that describes this is where we are. Otherwise, we end up having somebody doing contents that lose track or lose the direction. Okay, and as we said before, in the e-commerce, so a work plan, editorial calendar, so we are able to work in advance. And we are able to plan, and we are not so stressed, okay? What we cannot be doing is the posts that we're going to be publishing this week. Then it's not going to work. And of course, activate and localize global content into China. Yeah, I know many people say, no, but China is different. You know, when you say to other countries, doesn't work in China and this and that. Yes and not. Yes, because it's true, China is a very particular country, but no, because this is what is my brand about, and my brand is talking about chocolates, chocolate making, chocolate ingredients, the benefits of eating 200 grams of chocolate every day. I know one Belgian guy selling chocolates here in China, and he's very thin and very fat, and he told me every day he eats 250 grams of chocolate. So activate the contents, okay? So Chinese consumer journey and purchasing journey mainly happens across the channels we just mentioned. So the consumers are going to touch these points, and they're going to see, and they're going to research, and they're going to confirm this is what I would like to buy, then they're going to buy. Okay. So how we can be in these points of interaction? Sometimes maybe we have no choice to be, and sometimes we can be directly, or sometimes we can be indirectly. We can be cross-border, or we can be domestic. So to be honest, yes, I know there are many things to choose, many things to consider. So every case is particular, no? But basically, these are the points where the Chinese consumers are going to be checking and searching for the things, no? And hopefully we bring them to the last step, which is purchase again, no? Hopefully we will get to there. Then the last mile happens normally within the platforms. the last mile is inside the platforms, okay? And inside the platforms, we have clear tools to manage the relationship with them and to manage how we produce sales. No? But the tools are very similar to those we have in Europe. SEM, paid keywords, display advertising, affiliates, live streaming, SEO, the events or promotions. Then we have the weightout, which is the timeline during the pinball, the landing pages, homepage, then the intent to buy when people already express something. So how many people add to favorites, how many people add to the shopping cart, how many people contact with customer service, and finally the purchase. So managing this sales funnel becomes the job of normally whoever is managing the online store. Live streaming. Live streaming has become a big topic. It's true now there are so many hours of streaming that, to be honest, there are nearly more streamers than audience out there. So sometimes it can be totally useless, but not all the time it's totally useless. No? It depends. No? What happens is that people have more connectivity. With COVID, they stay at home, and also, as we said before, no, it makes the brand alive because this brand is communicating to me. And also, the last live streaming they had, it was 2 days ago. Even they are not seeing live, the live streaming normally is in this timeline that we mentioned. Okay, so it keeps fresh, it keeps interaction. So we have seen that working in live streaming is helping to improve the conversion rate of some stores. Okay, then when we do live streaming, we can do the top live streamer. So we can get Michael Jackson back to life if we have enough money and he's gonna talk about our brand. But that's going to be, okay, is one way of playing. The good thing of playing with a top live streamer is that we're going to reach incremental traffic. We're going to profit from the credibility. So higher volume, and maybe we're going to have the platforms are going to be happy because, hey, they have this very famous person talking about the brand. They are going to be happy. Problem, the cost is going to be more expensive. So prepare for a 10-minute session, 10 to 50,000 RMB, no more. Huh? And sometimes people get surprised. Oh, it's not that expensive. No, to be honest, I mean, yeah, 50,000 RMB, it's sometimes it's top live streamers. Huh? So the top 1, top 2, that normally top 1 and top 2, but we had some in the last years, but some of them had problem with the tax, it seems. They were having attacked by the government in terms of tax compliance. So it changed who can be the top, okay? And normally they get a commission, it's hard to negotiate the price for them, and also they want to add value to the community, okay? They are good live streaming. So we have to convince them, and they don't want to promote anything. So it's not just, I have the money, so I have this guy talking about my product. No, it's not so easy. In-house live streaming, okay? In-house live streaming is done by your own team, by your TP, or from the brand. It allows depth of product and explanation. It delivers conversion and traffic sometimes with time. And it can promote the internal knowledge in the company. If, for example, we have the customer support people or even the operations people helping to do live streaming, it helps them to make them feel more identified even with the brand. Of course, it's much more lower investment cost. This can be done by agencies, by people, and the cost can be as low as of a decent. I already say about a more or less decent, okay? Because this can be on commission, but it can be 100 RMB, 200 RMB per hour, maybe, the lowest you can find. And then a small sales commission, 5% of the GMV, so it's nothing to see. And you have people able to do that, but of course you have to take care of the quality, okay? And normally you don't have these people for 1 hour. You have these people for 30 hours, 50 hours at least, okay? Something like this, otherwise it doesn't make any sense because the cost is training the live stream, okay? And then just some lines on budget, and then I leave it to Domen. So you want to do a market research and a business plan in China, prepare from 35,000 RMB to 350,000 RMB, depending on you're hiring the super top consulting company or a relatively small consulting company. Market research business plan done this way will cost this much. If you don't want to spend so much, then you have another option, which is the freelancer. Like the freelancer who can make a very good business plan in 1,000 euros. Why not? Or if not, you have the last choice is, okay, a Chinese intern, a Chinese student in Europe, and either can do a market research and a business plan for you as a project. Of course, the level of professionality is going to change. But I always respect every scenario and every way of doing it, because people have to break even. And I honestly respect a lot any company that is alive. And I think we don't have any right to tell a company that is alive what they should be doing. So China content marketing, let's say, for example, 2 to 3 social networks is going to cost from the latest at least 120,000 RMB, more or less, with a professional company doing professionally. If you, again, you go to a freelancer or intern, it can be even lower, but of course, take care about the quality. To, let's say, maximum, I would say, well, maximum can be infinite, no? It can be as much as you want, but let's say 1.2 million. That would be a super top. To manage an e-commerce shop channel normally would be from 360,000 to 2 million. Again, can you make it somebody cheaper? Maybe, but because of the cost structure and what you need to do, it would not be so easy. This is all from my side. I'm going to leave it to Domen. I think Domen is going to add a lot of value with some relevant to a Slovenia case that I'm also looking forward to see. Thank you very much for your time. And we have some questions after Domen finishes. Maybe we can go through the questions.
Thank you, Luis, for this great presentation. I think all the participants could get really insightful information about the e-commerce and what are the first steps. And now I will present to all the participants like what we were doing. Just let me share a screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, great.
Domen, we can see your screen, but not in full screen presentation.
Not in full screen. Okay, let me just correct it. Thank you. Just a sec. What about now?
Now we see it perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so let me first introduce myself. So I'm marketing director for Central and Eastern Europe region for ePASI payments. And I'm also a co-founder of IC Global Company, which is a consulting company mostly focused on the Chinese market and also to the digital activities on the Chinese market. So my special field of expertise is digital payments, Chinese digital payments and Chinese digital marketing. And I have been in my past also studying in China and also leading different delegations to China from the education and business sector. Today, I would like shortly to present you some case studies, how we were doing in case of, I would say, in Europe with our ePASI company, offline to online cases and online to offline cases. And also, I would say it's quite important all the time to educate the customers wherever they are. And first of all, I would like to present you ePASI company. So ePASI is the largest mobile payment provider in the Nordics. For example, just in beginning of this year, we were the number 1 downloaded application in Finland. So what ePASI do? Mostly our core business is fringe benefits. What does it mean? It means that we provide to the employers for their employees that they can, through the fringe benefits, they can purchase the things with the merchants, and everything's go through our ePASI mobile platform. But beside that, also it was naturally for us then that we also implement Alipay and WeChat Pay through our platform. So when the Chinese tourists are coming to the Europe, they're mostly used to pay with their payments, as also Luis showed you before. For example, 70% of all people use mobile phone, like searching on the internet, and majority of them also are using mobile payments. So here is, for example, the first case study. What is the problem usually, which we also already mentioned before, for the Chinese is that some brands, they don't recognize that for Chinese, it's the core thing that they can pay with the phone because they're so adopted to the phone. For example, it was many times mentioned today, WeChat. And WeChat, I would say it's like their extension of their hand because they are so glued to this phone and this WeChat because all daily communication goes through the WeChat. And because of that, also, as it was shown before in the presentation, if you connect and put the store in the WeChat, you can really connect with the customer directly. So what we have done here, you can see like that, for example, there was a challenge that Chinese tourists was not spending so much money on when they were on the airplane. So we introduced then the possibility to pay with the QR code as they are used to do that in China. So when we introduce such kind of payment, then immediately the payments increased tenfold. So it's always, I would like to point out, really important that when you want to serve the Chinese market, that you consider what kind of habits they have in China. And also, like, for example, today it was many times introduced where all that they hang out on social media or what kind of buying platforms do they use. Luis, if you will have any comment, just please jump in.
No, amazing, amazing, nice, very nice. This in the airplane, amazing.
Okay, so I would like already Luis also mentioned, for example, that you always need to have one price tag, but Chinese in general, they're really, I would say, entrepreneurial, and also they like to bargain. Of course, now with I would say with all fixed prices, usually in Europe, it's a little bit harder to bargain, especially for example, for the merchants, they're not too used to the bargain for the last price with the customer. So what we have done, for example, here is the example of during the Golden Week. Golden Week, it's a period when majority of Chinese go to travel. It's from the 1st October to the 7th of October. And for example, when they came to the location, we can use in Alipay application. Alipay application, it's used almost by every Chinese because before, like several years ago, it was closed ecosystem. So it means with Alipay, you can usually purchase in Taobao or Tmall because it's the same parent company. So here, for example, the customers who have taken this coupon, 1/4 of these customers also used then a coupon. So it means it had 25% conversion rate. And also for that period, the sales increased for more than 30%. So it means like it's really possible to target audience really specifically, but it's really also need to use coupons to increase possibility of conversion rate. Then another thing which I would like to introduce you, it's, for example, showcase of how we were doing offline to online. What I mean with it, for example, we have a Chinese customer which came to our local market, and they want to search for some local products. This is the same. This is the case, for example, in Finland. And now they put in their phone, they put the name of the market, and immediately they can find it. And then they see what kind of products they are local. And what is here really important, because then they can proceed further with on the phone. They get directly to the Tmall store. Of course, now for the Tmall store, it's needed that you already establish Tmall store in advance before the customer would be coming to your store. But what is here really good thing is that, for example, when you have some customers who are from China and they come to your local place, then when they're coming back to China, they can find out in some local stores that they're selling your product, and then can immediately see that if this kind of product it can be bought also in China. So then if they bought the product, they can make repeat purchase when they are back to China. And here is also another offline to online. As I mentioned, they're really keen to use QR codes, because like in Europe, we start to use these QR codes more now when pandemic started. But in China, this is like already, I would say, from somehow 2014 and on, they were using as a like in a daily usage all these QR codes. So here we put on the screen when when Chinese tourists come to the airport, it could see immediately that on the screen it's written that he can buy for 20% cheaper if he's buying in the airport than if he would be buying in the city center. And then he would scan this QR code with his phone, and he usually do that. And then after the scanning, he would get the whole plan of the airport. Where are the shops? What kind of shops? In what kind of shops he can buy? And then also they would be presented the hero products, because also like Luis mentioned before, it's somehow I would say the Chinese really like to make some product which is the leading product, which also then follow all other products which it's covered by this hero product, which is showing for the brand. And then the customer, he can find all these important products on the platform and also all the other information. What I want to point out here, it's always one emergence between offline and online, which you can use whenever you are dealing with Chinese. Of course, here I'm showing you now what we have done in Europe, but also, as Luis mentioned, it's the same case. It's in fact done and it's copied from China to Europe, because many times if you want to get traction from Chinese customers, or you want to promote some product in China, you can see even like some, I would say, hosts who are going around with QR code of WeChat, and you can scan that code and then you start following some account. So it's always trying, you can use this offline to online trick. And it is also really, really important that you educate your customers. What I mean with it, many customers probably will not be familiar with your product or with your brand. And because of that, you can use KOLs or also some other social media where you promote all your branding and also your products. We have here approached in some another way, how we, for example, here we had a challenge when Chinese in Iceland, they were renting cars. And then when they were renting it, they were driving somewhere in the middle of nowhere, have seen some really beautiful scenery. They stopped in the middle of the road and then just went out of the car and started taking pictures. And this was quite huge problem for the local people, because they were not used to it, that somebody would just stop their car in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the road, and it caused some problems. And because of that, we tried to educate them, because they are from so much different culture. They think like if you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you can just leave the car there in the middle and nothing will happen. But this is not the case. So when we are trying to try to educate them, we always try to also not to damage brand reputation. And so what we have done here, we have made in the Alipay portal, when they can see where they can rent the car, there was also an article. And in this article, it was all the rules how the Chinese should behave, but in the more informative way, how they should behave when they're driving in Iceland. So by this, we have avoided that we would be commanding them how they should drive when they are there. So we used really subtle way how to educate our customers. And also, I would like to point out, when you want to educate your customers about your product, you have many different ways. As it was mentioned before, you can use KOLs, or you can write many articles about your product, but also have in your mind that when you are writing, when you are making some content about your product, you cannot use the same rules as you have used in what was working in Europe, that it will work also in China, because maybe some of the products they will use in a different way, or they will see these products differently. Maybe also Luis can add about something about this.
No, yeah, again, very interesting that the people are using the moment of buying and using the product to this education that you mentioned. It's again very good, and I think hopefully the Chinese will come soon. One question I have for you: so do you enable companies all over Europe to use Alipay, or only in Slovenia?
We were enabling mostly in the Nordics and in Slovenia and Balkan region.
Because it has to be connected with the local bank, no?
Yes. It depends again, because we are also the processing center, so we need to just have approval from the local authority, so from the national bank.
Great. This is great. It really looks very interesting.
Okay, so I had a little shorter presentation, but I hope it was really useful for you guys. What I want to show you is that you can use different application of online and offline, and that it's don't forget about it, that in China these both worlds are really connected, O2O. So what is happening offline, it can quickly switch to online and vice versa. So this would be my keynote for today of this presentation. And now I would ask you that if you have some additional questions for me or for Luis, just go with the questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Domen. And also, once again, thank you to Luis also for that presentation, covering a lot of the different channels to do sales in China, and also some very relevant case studies for how to use them. We've received quite a few questions, so I think we can just jump right into them. Let's begin with the one that has been submitted here also in the Q&A platform in Zoom. So maybe I could once again just also remind those of you who are watching that if you do have a question, now is the time, and you can submit it in the Q&A function here in Zoom. So the first question was asked during your presentation, Luis, but please both of you answer if you have answers to it. The question is that, Luis, you mentioned that in cross-border e-commerce, consumers cannot buy over a certain amount. This person asking the question would perhaps like to ask if that is the case, and perhaps some more thoughts on that.
Yes, because cross-border e-commerce is enabling consumers to import directly. So they don't want to abuse for the formula. The limit that was the last I remember is 5,000 RMB per transaction and 20,000 RMB per year. When you buy in the cross-border e-commerce business model, which means when you pay the postal tax instead of paying tariff and VAT. Okay, because then people say, no, but I can sell a more expensive product and I don't have these limits. Yes, You do not have these limits when you pay tariff and VAT. Okay, because you still can sell from outside to China with tariff and VAT. Okay, but when you sell in cross-border, which means paying postal tax, this one, yes, there is this limit, and how the government applies this limit. Because when you are buying in a cross-border, a consumer, first thing, only Chinese can buy in cross-border as far as I know, okay? Because you need the Shenzhen, you need the Chinese ID to go to Tmall Global or to go to JD Worldwide or other platforms like this, and you need to put the Shenzhen. So the Chinese government is able to track, okay, the amount of the transaction, of course, but also the track record that you have of purchasing. So yes, it will be able to implement this limit, no? And I think behind the spirit of this is the aim is try to avoid the abuse from this, no? Like you start to do too much import and this, and you abuse from this formula, no? So yes, there is a limit, but to be honest, the limit is high enough for not to be really a very big stopper. Normally.
Thank you, Luis, for that clarification. Let's move into the second question here, and the second question is quite a concrete one, actually. I think maybe not a big surprise, but a lot of the audience today are Slovenian companies. So there's a company here operating in the food and beverage industry, more specifically with wine and beer, so alcohol beverages. So perhaps some reflection on if you are a European or Slovenian wine and beer company looking to go online through these Chinese platforms. Any suggestions on which one to choose, or are there any difference between them?
Yeah. Domen, you want to go ahead? You are a Slovenian.
Oh,
if
thank
not,
you.
I can also.
Okay, I would first say like Taobao and Tmall, especially Tmall, because also Luis mentioned they have Cainiao, their own logistics. So Cainiao has quite a good also cold chain because it's really important for the beers and wine that they are stored in the right temperature. So this, if it's not handled properly, especially in the customs area, can be a huge problem. So I would say here it's really, really important, first of all, of course, to choose a right logistic company, which will be handling on. And because also, for example, JD, it's more electronically oriented. So because of that, Tmall, I would say it's as a first platform, which I would say is a go-to when it comes to beer or wine. And Luis, maybe you could add.
Yeah, I think I would agree in this too, but also I will find maybe find some category killers that maybe are also acting within those platforms. Some let's say sellers of many, because also category killer are going to have an advantage. It's going to make critical mass. It's going to put many products together, and also do not think that you are competitor with other wines or beers from even for your own country or from Europe. And this, on the contrary, we need the critical mass. You know, when the people meet together to cross a street, no? In some places, it's very dangerous. More people coming, and then they will cross the street together. Okay, so in China, it's a little bit the same way, and it's good to be with those who we think we are our competitors. Why? Because the Chinese sometimes they don't know that the wine is from Slovenia or the wine is from another country or from another brand. They just know it's an imported brand, maybe from the north of Europe. And that's it. And this is how they go. Okay, and then they go to a shop because this shop has a lot of wines from the north of Europe. So don't be scared, don't be afraid to go there with, oh, he's my competitor here in Slovenia. How can I go with this guy together? No, go with this guy together, because then you two are going to have this. So yeah, this is what I would recommend. Category killers, and what Domen said, I agree, because these are the catch-all platforms.
Maybe if I also add, Luis, because in Slovenia, I would say in general, wineries are quite smaller, probably in comparison to Spain or France. So, but you mentioned it's really important that they go together and to be presented on the market. Otherwise, it can be quite a big challenge if they go by them own. So,
yeah, and I think even the Europeans, we should, many small enterprises, we should go together. I think we have to know how to collaborate and then compete. But if we collaborate to attract the traffic, and then maybe we need to compete, but then we compete once the traffic is into our shop, no? Altogether.
Thank you, Luis and Domin, also for the reflections on that question. And we'll move right on to the next one that we have received. I think it goes back to one thing you were also mentioning towards the end of your presentation, Luis. You touched briefly on the KOL and the live streaming aspect, and you gave some, of course, it's hard to give a concrete price example of what they cost, but you gave some food for thoughts as to how it could be to do it in-house and how it could be if you hire a more professional agency. The question here reads, whether or not Chinese marketing agencies are more expensive than they usually happen to be in Europe and in the US. It's kind of a two-part question, but maybe we can start with that part.
I would say rather than the Chinese agency being more expensive, I would say the China service being more expensive because it's more labor intensive normally, because it's more specific and it's very intensive in contents and it's very intensive in this. So yes, normally, to be honest, the people, after people have companies, I don't know, typically I have one company doing my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, and of course, normally the quotations are much lower because it's much less marketing intensive. And then about the setup, to be honest, personally, I think it's very important to work with somebody who can understand the brand very, 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 very well. So if I'm from Slovenia, if I could work with, for example, with somebody like Domen, I'm sure he has Chinese and this, I will try to prioritize something like this, or work with somebody in Slovenia, because we have to work from the base, from the roots, because we have to make it very authentic. We have to talk something very real. Really, the consumers are not stupid. The consumers are very clever. The consumers are really, I think they are like cats. They feel that you are honest or you are not honest. So you have to make it very honest. To make it very honest, you have to really know the brand. So in this, I will work from the roots, and I will try to prioritize somebody who understands my culture a lot. For example, who is from Slovenia, or some Chinese who understand Slovenia, my country, and this, and to build from the roots, to build from the base. Personally, I will prefer approach that I can keep and maintain over the time. I mean, this is what I said in the presentation. I need to keep the effort 2, 3, 4 years. So think about a setup that I'm going to be able to maintain 2, 3, 4 years. Because if I think about a setup, it's incredible, super huge, it's the top agency in the world. But you know what? If we don't break even in 10 months, I'm bankrupt. Then I wouldn't recommend to do that. I would recommend to have a more small approach to keep it the effort all the time. No? And Domen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's like you mentioned. First of all, I totally agree with this, that you need somebody who will bring the brand to the Chinese market, who's familiar with the brand. So if somebody who's not, I wouldn't say who's not local, but at least European, he cannot really know what the brand wants to say further to the Chinese customers. And also, this is also, I agree about how much money you should invest at the beginning, because if you invest too quickly, you can burn money in the Chinese market really fast. So I would say with a modest approach and trial and error, but with these smaller chunks of trial and errors, you can see the reaction of the market and not burn money too quickly. So this is a really important aspect.
Yeah, and if it's possible to find somebody that loves and is identified with the brand and with the values, always much better. And maybe, to be honest, you find somebody who's very passionate about piano playing and he wants to sell pianos and this, then I think I will want to work with this guy to sell pianos, because I think the likelihood of success is going to be much better. And I think sometimes the skills, when we talk about e-commerce and digital marketing, we try to find, okay, somebody who did before that, who managed a Tmall store before that and this. In my opinion, it's more important that this person loves the product and know about the product, and is passionate about the product, and is passionate about the platform. This is my humble opinion. Why? Because that is difficult to replicate. If I find somebody who knows about chocolate, who knows about the world of chocolate, about the characteristics and this guy, okay, maybe he knows less about how to optimize the keyword search or the title, the product title, or this. You know what? I think that guy I can be with him, with somebody who is passionate about the product. If somebody knows a lot about the platform and knows a lot about the tools, but have no passion about the product, I think it's going to be very difficult. And also, finally, we have to bring this reality and passion to the consumers. Consumers going to feel it. So, and the tools are not complicated, honestly. Let's not overrate the difficulty of the tool. The tool keyword marketing is what we have in Europe. Which keywords you want to buy? What is the cost per click? What is the click-through rate? What is this? To be honest, it's not rocket science. What is rocket science is, this is a good chocolate. This is a good chocolate because it has this cocoa from these trees, and this is the way we make it. This is the way we process it. This is the way we experience it. This is the scarce resource.
So how about we continue with that example you mentioned? Let's say you have a chocolate, you have a great chocolate, and you have your branding. The whole setup is set up back in your own local market, perhaps broadly in the European Western market. But if you want to enter the Chinese channels, I guess you can say there are two different ways to do it. One is to dip your toes slowly in one platform and feel as you go along, and the other one is to try and get engaged in more different platforms and have a bigger setup. Domen, you mentioned that, of course, one of the downsides of that could be you could spend a lot of money very fast, perhaps not the intention, but maybe any reflections on which of these two approaches could have which upsides and which downsides? So choosing one platform and going slowly, or perhaps choosing more platforms and wanting to make a difference fast?
Luis, will you first?
Well, sometimes, to be honest, it's true that some business require speed and require reach. Because some business and some business models, it's truth being said, when you make it too slow, too small, it's not going to break even because it's too small, because of the reach. So it is true that in some scenarios, in fact, it's going to be better and it's going to be necessary to spread. Because if I'm going to make a marketing investment and some channel investment, I need to reach in a much more powerful way, no? So sometimes the business is going to require that, and then no doubt, then the approach must be one approach to reach some critical mass. And also when we have in small margins and this, we need huge volume. So no doubt, maybe the lean approach is not going to work. But that scenario normally is not going to be so much the small and medium enterprise. And normally when we have this kind of big scenario that they're going to make something big, sometimes you normally have a joint venture or a Chinese partner who is willing to take part of the risk together with you. No? I don't know. Recently, I was, for example, seeing the case of Lavazza, no? The expansion Lavazza is doing with a joint venture in June Food, in June brands in China. It's amazing, but it's a joint venture. Of course, Lavazza is a great European company with a Chinese partner, no? So normally in these kind of scenarios of bigger launch, it would be nice to have some risk sharing with some Chinese partner if possible. If not, vertical integration with big deployment in China, it's a pretty risky situation, in my opinion. And nowadays, I think normally I would try to avoid that scenario unless to see things totally clear, which there might be some cases out there, but very few, I guess, in the whole Europe.
I would also point out that at least when it comes to Slovenian companies, that it's they always need to consider if they will be selling, I would say, big benches of their products. That is the product starts selling really good. That sometimes can be problem of production capacity. So this they need also always to consider if they have enough capacity, or if they can increase this capacity when it's needed to sell more products to the Chinese market. I know that it's sweet dreams that you sell more products, but what it happens that you cannot follow up with your production.
Luis and Domen, thank you both for your answers. I think we are running out of time, so I think we made it through the presentations and the questions that we have. Here to wrap up at the end, just want to once again say a big thanks to both of you for sharing your knowledge and your experiences, your cases with us today. I do want to say one thing to you guys who are watching here today before we leave you, is that we hope that you would take the half a minute to 1 minute to take out and fill out the feedback survey that we will be sharing to you in a day or two. And remember that today is not the last session that we have in the EU SME Center, so please also check our website for our coming events. But today is the last session out of the 5-session capacity building webinar series that we have been collaborating on with EU SME Center, together with also Spirit Slovenia, Sonia, Martin, and everyone at Spirit Slovenia. So thank you very much for that collaboration. Also with Eurochambres, Laura and the team at Eurochambres. And today, of course, also today's session collaborated with the Slovenian-Chinese Business Council. So thanks to Nina and the whole team there as well. On that note, just like to say thanks to you as well for watching today's session and following the last 5 sessions if you have seen more of them. And we hope to see you for more sessions in the future as well. So thanks to everyone, and yeah, see you next time.